Look, there must be some mistake. I can get you more credits.
I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold.
There are few fictional cultures as instantly recognizable as the Mandalorians. The armor, the creed, the quiet silhouettes standing against impossible odds. These images have become part of our shared imagination. But behind the helmets and the legends lies something deeper. A cultural world shaped by myth, memory, diaspora, and the people who keep reinventing what it means to be Mandalorian. This series approaches the Mandalorians the way an anthropologist might approach any real community, by asking how they understand themselves, how they build meaning, and how their traditions evolve across time. Even though Mandalorians are fictional, the cultural patterns that define them are anything but simple. They are layered, contradictory, and profoundly human. Today we begin with a question that seems simple but opens into an entire universe of ideas. What is Mandalorian culture? So why study a fictional people through anthropological methods? Anthropology is the study of how humans create meaning through stories, rituals, kinship, and objects. Everyday choices that shape a community. Traditionally, anthropologists study real societies, but fictional cultures can be just as revealing because they are built from hopes, fears, and imaginations of the people who create and interpret them. When we study a fictional culture like the Mandalorians, we're not pretending they exist in the real world. Instead, we are examining how their stories function as cultural artifacts. We're asking, what do these stories tell us about identity, about belonging, about the tension between tradition and change? Fictional ethnography treats transmedia worlds, films, novels, comics, games, fan creations, as field sites. Each medium contributes a different perspective, just as different communities within a culture might tell different versions of the same story. The Mandalorians are especially suited to this approach because their identity is fragmented, contested, and constantly reinterpreted. Studying them anthropologically allows us to trace how meaning is built, lost, and rebuilt again. The Mandalorians are not a single species, a single religion, or even a single political group. They are a cultural formation, a collective identity that has shifted across centuries of in-universe history and decades of real-world storytelling. At different points in Star Wars canon and legends, Mandalorians have been a warrior race descended from the Town, a multi-species martial society, a diaspora scattered across the galaxy, a pacifist reform movement, a fractured people, rebuilding after a catastrophe, and a creed-based community defined by chosen identity. This fluidity is not a flaw. It is the core of Mandalorian culture. And anthropologists often describe cultures as dynamic systems, always changing, always negotiating meaning. Mandalorians embody this principle. Their identity is not fixed. It is performed, debated, and reinvented by each generation. This is why the question, what is a Mandalorian, has no single answer. Instead, it opens up conversation about belonging, tradition, and the power of shared stories. To understand Mandalorian culture, we have to understand the ecosystem that produces it. Star Wars is not a single narrative. It is a transmedia world. Stories unfold across films, animated series, novels, comics, games, and fan communities. Each medium adds new layers, new interpretations, and sometimes new contradictions. In anthropology, this is similar to studying a culture through multiple field sites. A researcher might visit villages, cities, religious centers, and diaspora communities, each offering a different perspective on what the culture means. Together, these sources create a cultural mosaic. No single piece is complete on its own, meaning emerges from the interplay between them. For Mandalorians, each medium functions like a different community telling its own version of the history. Legends emphasizes ancient history, warrior clans, and mythic cycles. The Clone Wars explores politics, pacifism, and civil war. Rebels focuses on art, identity, and resistance. The Mandalorian highlights creed, found family, and the ethics of care. And fan communities contribute costuming traditions, symbolic interpretations, and new forms of belonging. This series is built around 3 guiding questions drawn from ethnographic manuscript that inspired it, that I wrote. These questions help us navigate the complexity of Mandalorian identity and keep our analysis grounded. First, how do Mandalorians construct and maintain cultural identity across time, space, and media? This asks us to look at the mechanism of tradition, myth, ritual, kinship, material culture, and how they adapt to new circumstances. Second, how does diaspora change Mandalorian culture? The Mandalorians are repeatedly displaced, fragmented, and forced to rebuild. Diaspora is not just a historical event for them. It is a cultural condition. Third, how do creators and fans participate in the ongoing reinvention of Mandalorian identity? This acknowledges that culture is co-created. Writers, directors, artists, cosplayers, and fans contribute to what Mandalorian means. These questions will guide every episode in the series. They will help us see Mandalorians not just as characters, but as participants in a living, evolving cultural tradition. Every culture has stories that anchor its identity. For Mandalorians, myth and memory are especially important because their history is marked by loss. When a people lose their homeland, their archives, or their political institutions, stories become the glue that hold identity together. Mandalorian mythic history, from Mandalore the First to the Crusades, to the rise and fall of the Darksaber, functions as a cultural character. These stories explain who the Mandalorians are, where they came from, and what values they hold. But myth is not static. It is retold, interpreted, and sometimes contested. Different clans, different eras, and different storytellers emphasize different parts of the narrative. This is not a weakness. It is a sign of cultural vitality. These practices create continuity even when everything else changes. They allow Mandalorians to remain Mandalorian, whether they live on Mandalore, in exile, or in complete isolation. This is why the phrase, "this is the way," carries so much weight. It is not just a rule. It is a reminder that identity is lived, not inherited. One of the most important ideas in anthropology is that culture is not something people have. It is something people do. It is enacted through daily life, through rituals, through the choices people make about how to live. For Mandalorians, culture is performed through wearing armor, following the creed, caring for foundlings, honoring clan obligations, maintaining craft traditions, participating in communal rituals, and telling stories. So, why do Mandalorians resonate so deeply with audiences? Why do people across the world feel drawn to their stories, their symbols, and their ethos? Part of the appeal lies in the tension between individuality and community. Mandalorians are fiercely independent, yet bound by obligations to clan and creed. They are warriors, yet capable of profound tenderness. They are fragmented, yet united by shared symbols. Another part of the appeal is the idea of chosen identity. In a world where many people feel disconnected from traditional forms of belonging, the Mandalorian emphasis on adoption, mentorship, and found family follows a powerful alternative. You are Mandalorian not because of blood, but because of commitment. Mandalorians embody resilience. They lose their home again and again, yet they rebuild, they adapt, they survive. Their culture is not defined by stability, but by the ability to endure change. This resilience mirrors real-world experiences of diaspora, displacement, and cultural reinvention. It speaks to anyone who has ever felt uprooted or in search of a place to belong. Through this series, we will explore Mandalorian culture from every angle. Mythic origins, kinship systems, ethos, material culture, traditions, political structures, etc., etc. By the end of the series, you will not only understand who the Mandalorians are, you will understand why they matter. Mandalorian culture is not a single story. It is constellations of stories, some ancient, some newly invented, and some contradictory, but all meaningful. It is a culture shaped by myth, by memory, by loss, and by the people who keep choosing to carry it forward. Thank you for coming with me on this journey, and I'm very excited to see what happens next. This is the way.
This is the way.